This is a virtual training on the program. We are excited to have you here. I'm excited for people who watch this later. So to all that's watch this video, thank you. I'm going to start by talking about a little bit of a presentation as to what we're doing and why we're doing it. So the project team, the folks that are behind all this are the Department of Sustainability and Resilience. My name is John O'Dell. I'm the chief of the department. We also have the Department of Public Works, who have been actively involved, particularly the Water and Sewer division of that department. We have Weston and Sampson, our consultants, been doing great work out in the field and now in the back office putting together the modeling for this. And of course, our Flood Watch community volunteers, which is all of you. So wanted to go over a few things just to start the overview of the session, some definitions, a bit of an introduction into the project, why it's important, and of course, why what you're doing is going to be so valuable, what, where, why, and how. And I want to go over a few of the definitions. So we have definitions on urban flooding, gray infrastructure, and green infrastructure. So an introduction, and here's a picture of a flooded area just to give you a sense of some of the upcoming pictures and documentation and the need for why we're doing this project. So the project introduction revolves around a few different items. First, we had our Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Plan, the MVP plan, which we did in 2019, which suggested that there were a few key pieces of vulnerability to the city of Worcester. And one of them being flooding, Heat Island being another, and dealing with droughts as well. But flooding is it can be a major issue in Worcester, and as we're learning to our neighbors to the north and east of us in Vermont and New York, they're suffering some severe flooding right now, as we all know. We'll touch a little bit more about that later, but that easily could have been over Worcester instead of there. So we were lucky that it didn't happen, but as we can see, some of their current infrastructure is not able to withstand these kinds of significant rain events in an effective way. Their downtown flooded for several days. It's starting to recede now, but more rain is on the way. And hopefully those dams will hold for them. We want to be sure that we understand our system as well as possible so that we can prepare accordingly. So we have a number of percentage of our the hazards due to impervious surfaces, especially in a densely developed areas of the city. We have insufficient capacity of existing underground drainage infrastructure in some areas of the city. And this, of course, leads to more damage to property, erosion, injury, and more. So we expect more flooding over time. Climate change is real, as we all know, and as a result, the storms that we get may often be more intense. And as they become more intense, they will have these flooding characteristics, even more so than what have experienced to date. And the notable impact of this over time is that it will have an increased annual rainfall and increased annual rainfall during the event itself as well. So it's a combination of both of these factors. So why don't you just touch base? We have flash flood warnings that are occurring more frequently. We had some not that long ago. This was, I think, in 2023. Just a few weeks ago, we had one. In 2018, we had a significant flooding event, as you can see from the picture here. And then in 2021, this is another picture. This is under Cambridge Street, which is notorious for flooding pretty regularly. So these events, as you can see, are happening more and more frequently over just in the last few years. We've had some significant ones, and it's really just a matter of time. It's not if, it's when we're going to get something even more severe, something even more like what's happening up in Vermont now. So urban flooding is not a problem that's unique to us, of course. That's what I was just talking about. You can see some by the picture is that the damage is severe in some cases. Roads are being completely washed away. Well over 100 people have been rescued from their cars or other areas that were caught unaware in the storm or unaware of how bad it got so quickly. And the problem's not over yet. As I mentioned, more water is coming and the fact of more storms in the near future. So this could happen here in Worcester. And there's not just Vermont. I mean, there's plenty of examples here. You can see in the picture here, there's good examples from Detroit and New Orleans and Boston and all Phoenix even, which is suffering from a heat dome effect, which is another effect of climate change, but then it flips can flip on a dime and all of a sudden they have a flooding problem just a few months later. So all this just to show the importance of this issue. So Stormwater and Green Infrastructure Master Plan. So why don't you just talk very briefly about what this actually means. So it's a 2-year project that's been started back in September of 2022, and it'll be running through June of 2024. It's funded by the Massachusetts Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant that was awarded to the city. It covers about 75% of the project costs, which was very helpful in making this project to go. And the goal of this is threefold. It's to develop a comprehensive understanding of the municipal drainage systems and its constraints. It's to identify the city's most vulnerable areas using infrastructure and social resilience framework. And it's to prioritize actions that advance flooding resiliency with a focus on a hybrid approach of nature-based solutions, green infrastructure, if you will, and gray infrastructure enhancements. So you may have heard the expression, you can't manage what you don't measure. This is the part where we're trying to get the measurements tuned much better than they have been in the past. It's not like there is no system in place now, but this is going to be a tuning effort to make the system that we have now that much more robust. So we know exactly where and when to spend taxpayer money on and to prioritize actions on where we want to invest in these green and gray infrastructure improvements. So our consultant, Weston & Sampson, their work includes a number of specific items, which would include the improving of the accuracy of the city's stormwater inspection GIS system. We'll do inspections in the field to map all these infrastructures that currently exist and how well they're working. Conducting hydrological and hydraulic modeling of the system, especially during high intensity and short duration events, as well as long intensity duration events, and then using that information to model what will happen for both the near term and all the way out to 2070. We'll identify 6 flood-prone areas and develop alternative analyses to address flooding, considering both gray and green infrastructure solutions to those 6 areas in particular, and will help prioritize, we hope, even beyond those 6. But the 6 priorities, which we've already have a good idea about, but how to prioritize them is still to be determined. So this is where you come in. This is where we need your help. And so I'm going to turn it over to Luba Zarover, the Director of Projects here for the Department of Sustainability and Resilience, to walk us through that. Luba?
Thank you, John. So I'm going to talk about the Flood Watch program, which is a community science portion of it where you contribute towards the city work and the building city resilience to flooding. So the goal of the program is to gather on-the-ground flooding data to help improve the accuracy of the model that Weston & Sampson is building on. The more accurate the model, the better it is at predicting future flooding events, identifying systems, the drainage systems vulnerabilities, and developing a priority list of the system improvements, as John just mentioned. Next, please. So this is a quick chart of the project timeline. I do want to preface that by saying that we can't predict rain events. So depending on weather conditions, this may be adjusted a little, but hopefully we'll have enough significant rain events in the next 6 months or so that enough data can be collected to inform the model. But the launch of the program itself is in July, and people can start gathering data and uploading their observations to a web page that we set up. I'll talk about it in the next couple of slides. And the plan is to gather the data through the end of this year. The data will be continuously analyzed and used by Weston and Sampson's modeling people, and they will also be updating the model projecting to 2070. The project is broken out into two parts: the current flooding and systems vulnerability, and also projecting to 2070 when we know that what climate change projections are going to be even more severe. So we actually want to be proactive about this project and not just improve our system to current conditions, but to the future ones as well. The project should be completed by the end of June, which is the fiscal year. We run on fiscal year cycles here, and that's when our grant as well expires. And this is a general timeline that is subject to change due to several factors, but it's pretty solid. Next slide, please. We wanted to define urban flooding for you guys, so you know what is or isn't a flooding. If in basic terms, if a catch basin on a street takes in the water, there's no flooding. It's just fast flowing rainwater that is taken up by the system. If the drainage system is bubbling over, it is considered flooding in general sense. So if water in the street crosses over the sidewalk, it's even worse, obviously. Not flooding are these large puddles of fast moving water rushing into storm drains. If a storm drain is covered by leaves, for example, and you clear off the leaves and the water starts flowing, then it's technically not flooding either. If in doubt, we prefer that people still take pictures and upload it, and we'll sort through them and decide what's useful or not. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick logistical slide explaining how to participate. We have thought through steps and tried to make it as easy for you as possible. And there's going to be a question and answer session at the end to address any issues. And we are flexible. We can change things if they make sense and we haven't thought of something. But we want to start by having you fill out a very short online participation registration form. So we have your information, we know how to contact you about project updates. We want you to, if possible, if you do have a smartphone, I understand that not everyone does, if you could activate a geolocation on your smartphone so that every image that is taken, the coordinates, GPS coordinates of where you're standing and taking that picture or video are recorded with the image. So when you upload it, it's very easy for Weston and Sampson to know exactly where you are, and that's really the best way to gather data. There are ways around it in case you can't do it, and we will discuss that as well, but this is the most important parts of it is if there is flooding, that you record data, pictures and short videos, and you know where you were and when you were. Photos and videos will have a timestamp on them automatically, so that is taken care of, but the location is just, if not as a more important than the time and date. Then once you take pictures and videos, you can upload it to a SharePoint site that has been set up, and the link will be sent to you once you register for FloodWatch program. Next slide, please. So this is just in a little more details and to visually show what these forms look like. It's a QR code that will take you to our Sustainability and Resilience webpage on the city's website. There are 5 questions. We just need your email to be able to contact you, a waiver, and you'll get a confirmation email with data observation upload link. Next slide. Step 2, activating geolocation. We will have instructions available to you depending on whether you have an Apple product or Android product. They're slightly different. So if you need help, we'll have that information provided to you guys. We will be putting a lot of resources on our webpage tomorrow and on Friday. And this resource will be there as well. It will also be helpful as you taking pictures of the flooding to take a situational photo as you're standing and taking a picture of a bubbling catch basin. From that same location, look around, find the closest street intersection and take a picture of that, so people reviewing the pictures can make sure that they know exactly where you were in relation to that catch basin. Unfortunately, our catch basins do not have unique IDs. That would be really the best way to know where you are, maybe in the future. Next slide, please. When to take pictures and videos, either during or right after heavy rain event. If you have a rain that kind of drizzles on over 6 hours, it's unlikely that we'll have a flooding on the street. So it's typically an intense rain event, maybe an inch in an hour. Unfortunately, we can't, it's hard to predict when those flood events will happen, because sometimes one part of the city can be in the pathway of the storm and the other one would be completely dry, and there's no way for us to separate out where you guys are and alerting you to it. There may be a case when we know a big one is coming and it's like 95% chance of rain event, it's going to be a big one, it's going to cover the city. We will likely send you an email on that, but we are generally relying on you to, since you work and live in Worcester, you know where typically flood events happen, and you decide on when to record that data. Next one, please. So the question is where to gather the information, the flooding information. So there are two options. One is where you historically observed flooding. We want to use, obviously, your knowledge and experience living and knowing the city. Another option is that we currently have anticipated flood maps based on the preliminary work by Weston and Sampson for parts of the city. So we will be uploading some of them on our webpage soon. So you are welcome to look at those red dots where we anticipate to see flooding, and that would be also helpful to calibrate the model. Next, please. So this is an example of a portion of a city and the map with red dots that are labeled as flooded nodes. That's what it would look like. So we would like to focus on the clusters of those when possible. Next one. Those are the two sections that we currently have available. Two sections of the city currently have available with those projected flooding areas, and more coming soon. We'll be sharing them as soon as we get them from Weston and Sampson. Having said that, you are welcome to gather flooding in other areas of the city. It's okay that we don't quite have the modeling ready yet. This data is still valuable and will be used as soon as the model is ready. So it's just in terms of guiding you guys to where potential flooding areas are, we wouldn't have those maps just yet, but soon, maybe in a month or so. Next one. Last step, uploading the data. So as I mentioned, once you register, you'll get a link to a share file site. We will ask your name, contact information. That's important in case the data didn't upload correctly. We have a question about where you were, the exact location of where the picture was taken. Anything can happen when you're uploading large sets of data. We want to have a way to contact you to clarify things. So, so some of the fields are required fields, including email address. and the size limitation is 250 megabytes. So just be cognizant of that. If you have a very long video, it may not upload. I would suggest if you are taking a video, take it in less than 10 seconds chunks. And you can obviously upload it several times, right? Like you can send data multiple times, but no more than 250 megabytes at a time. Next one. So Weston and Sampson will use the data to refine their model and will assist the city in prioritizing the infrastructure improvements with suggestions for also gray infrastructure projects to complement the green infrastructure projects to complement the gray infrastructure improvements underground. I just wanted to mention that we use the word stormwater system and drainage system interchangeably. It's one and the same. And then final presentation of the results and completed plan will be presented to the city and to our community scientists in the late spring or June of 2024 when we are wrapping up the project. Next one, please. Last slide. Safety. Just use common sense. Do not go into flooded waters that are moving quickly. Be careful, please, walking on slick surfaces, stay on sidewalks, and please do not drive through flooded streets. Next. That is really the end of the presentation. We would love to hear your feedback, answer any questions. If you have any suggestions for improving the program, we would be happy to hear that as well. Thank you, and over to John.
All right, thank you so much, Luba. So I can look here and see, does anyone have any questions for us right now? All right, I don't see any questions, which is great. I guess that means we did a perfect job on this presentation. That's good to see. But what usually happens, of course, is that you think of the questions sometime between 2 and 5 minutes after this presentation is over. So wanted to make sure that you could send your question or comment in an email. If you look at the email address there, greenworcester@worcesterma.gov, by all means, feel free to send us any comments or thoughts. All right, well, thank you all. Again, feel free to send us any comments or questions you might have. We look forward to working with you and all the people who see this after this initial presentation. And with that, we'll close. Thanks.